Know the difference with Annex Wealth Management? Eric Strom is with us, Director of Financial Planning at Annex, also a CFP and an enrolled agent with the IRS. Hey, Eric.
Hello, Danny.
Well, big news broke this past week for some people receiving Social Security. What exactly happened?
Well, we have new legislation that has been signed. President Biden signed the Social Security Fairness Act this past Sunday. Very recent news. This measure is going to affect, once it's implemented, 3 million current retirees who are receiving Social Security. And that's the number you hear in the articles. But the effect is actually quite larger than that, too, because there's many people that aren't taking Social Security yet that will benefit from this as well.
This was a Fairness Act. So what needed to be made more fair?
There were two provisions that were rescinded. This act eliminates something called the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP, and also eliminates another provision called the Government Pension Offset. Believe it or not, these two provisions go all the way back to the 70s and 80s. They've been around a long time. They've been controversial somewhat, but now they are fully repealed as a result of this act.
It's going to impact a number of people. What are those impacts for participants?
The first key to understand is who's affected by this. You are a public worker and you earned a pension from that job. And here is the key, Danny. If during that job you didn't pay Social Security for that government job, which provided you the pension, those are the people who are being affected originally by these two provisions before they were repealed. So example of this, to make it a little more real, I'll say about my dad. So my dad was a teacher for many years in another state, and in that state, he was covered by a pension. He didn't pay any Social Security tax for that teaching job. However, my dad also, before he was a teacher, owned a business. And when he was a business owner, he did pay Social Security payroll tax. So he started building up a Social Security benefit. So my dad is actually the exact person who could potentially be affected by this because he had that government pension job where he wasn't paying Social Security tax. Those were the people who were having reductions in their Social Security as a result of those two provisions. What that does is if you had your own side gig or a previous job before or after your government job that built up your Social Security, your Social Security benefit would be reduced by the pension that you're getting from that government job. Let's turn to the government pension offset because that's very important too. That provision was for spousal benefits. So let's say, Danny, hypothetically, that my dad, he was only a teacher. He never owned the business. And let's say that my mom had earnings from a job, which she does, and she built up her own Social Security benefit. If my dad would have otherwise qualified for a spousal benefit, that's where the government pension offset would have reduced that either somewhat or in many cases all the way to zero. But that's now been repealed. Whether it's your own job that you had or whether it's spousal or even survivor benefits, in the past, those could have been reduced or even fully eliminated. That has now been repealed. It's a lot simpler. If you've got a Social Security benefit and a government pension, you no longer have to worry about if it may get reduced because they have been fully repealed.
There will be increases in payments and benefits. Any idea about how much?
On average, the windfall elimination provision removal is slated to increase people's benefits by about $360 per month for people who are being affected by that. Again, that's an average. There may be people with a lot more or less than that. For the government pension offset elimination, that's forecasted it could increase benefits a little bit more, perhaps up to $700 to about $1,200 a month, depending on your spousal status, how much benefit they had, and other factors. These are averages, so your specific situation could vary greatly from that, but these are very meaningful increases for a lot of people.
That's the good news. The bad news is it's going to run into administrative and financial challenges.
It's important to talk about that. For starters, the Social Security Administration has the requirement of backdating this to January of last year, 2024. If you were being affected by these two provisions, they're going to be almost certainly making back payments to people all the way back to last January, which means that they're going to have to figure out the logistics of that. It's not that simple. They have to figure out when did you become eligible, how are they going to make that payment, when, because many clients at Annex, we are doing proactive tax planning. This could be additional income that's all coming in that 1 year for all the back payments. Another thing to say is that if you are affected by this, maybe you're engaging in planning around Social Security optimization. When should I start my Social Security? When should my spouse start theirs? And if you're married, a lot of times there's an interplay there. This is a very big factor that is new that would make you really want to reassess from scratch what is your Social Security plan because this does affect that. Now, the last way this could affect things, this is going to cost money because you're paying a lot more benefit to millions more people. Of course, we were already concerned about the insolvency of the Social Security Trust Fund, which we already know sometime in the 2030s, if nothing were to ever change, that trust fund is on a depletion path. But there's a lot of conversations going on about how to increase the health of Social Security that have already been occurring. And we're actually quite optimistic in general here at Annex about this because there are levers that can be pulled to greatly increase the health of Social Security. But right now, the numbers show that it would make the trust fund run out of money 6 months sooner. So it's not helping things, it's really costing some money, which is another factor to consider as well.
Eric Strom, Director of Financial Planning and a CFP at Annex Wealth Management. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.